Hi guys, welcome back to Ask a Lawyer channel. How are you doing today? I have 4 news stories for you today. The first one is about in-laws who didn't bother to attend their daughter's wedding because there were too many people at the wedding. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm pissed. I have never hated someone as much as I loathe my wife's damn family. We got married 2 weeks ago at our church. We had invited 82 people, 51 of which were my family, 26 were friends from work and church, and 5 from her family. Her parents, brother, sister-in-law, and kid-nephew in elementary school. It was a beautiful ceremony, except that my wife kept breaking out into violent tears about every half hour all day, from before the ceremony to the reception, and even after we drove off to our honeymoon. Why? Because those 4 pieces of adult craps didn't come to our wedding. A wedding which we planned to suit their particular tastes. I have money, enough money to have given my wife her literal dream wedding at the resort we honeymooned at. However, the resort had a dress code and was a 3-hour drive away, so she decided to have a more informal wedding closer to home. We wanted to make sure her family felt comfortable, so we went from a $50,000 wedding to a $1,000 potluck, almost all of which went towards the cost of renting the church for the day. My wife didn't even wear the dress she liked since it would have been too formal for the occasion. Well, duck her family. Her brother sent a text message a few hours before the ceremony saying he was tired from working the day before and didn't want to drive an hour to the church. He's a librarian. Nonsense, right? But nowhere near as maddening as his parents. Her mom and dad, whom she lived with her entire life until now, my wife stayed with her sisters and her bridesmaids the night before the wedding to get ready, called and said they didn't feel up to being around so many people at 10 a.m. in the morning, nor did they want to drive the 30 minutes to the church because of bad traffic by the shopping center. They wanted to celebrate the weekend we got back from our honeymoon with a dinner. We live in a more rural part of the South. Traffic doesn't exist. A possible and rare 15-minute delay from an accident on the side of the road doesn't warrant missing your daughter's wedding. I have never seen my wife cry before because she doesn't. Stub her toe, Russian steel. Cat died, introvert quietly. Her motto is that tears get in the way, so she simply doesn't cry. But she has, for 2 weeks. That's how absolutely devastated she is. She tried to remain cheery for the wedding, but she just wasn't in the mood, even though she went through the motions and everyone else at the wedding did their best to cheer her up. Once we left for the honeymoon, though, it was just all tears until she passed out in our room. And then the rest of the week, she spent lying in bed. She didn't even watch television. She just laid there, sleeping and crying, and barely eating anything at all. She doesn't really talk. I called a therapist to visit her in our home when we got back, and was told afterwards not to leave her alone with her thoughts. So when I went back to work the next week, my family and our friends have taken turns watching her. My cousin even brought kittens for her to play with, and she just wasn't having it. Nothing in her life brings her joy. She has shut down completely. So yeah, I really hate her family. I never want to see them again. I don't even want my wife to see them again after this. Though I know I won't have a say in that. I spend every day worrying about her. I don't know how to deal with my anger. I don't know how to deal with my wife's depression. I don't know what comes next. In my opinion, things like this just don't happen. They're part of some bigger pattern. It is not described in OP's text, but there is undoubtedly some kind of dysfunctional relationship in the family of OP's wife. It is as clear as day. I have no doubt that this is just the final event in a huge list of events. Maybe it was even something possible to predict, based on the previous behavior of her parents. But it is the kind of thing that we often refuse to see, or do not want to believe that it is possible. This time, of course, they won't do that. For this event at least, certainly they will act differently. But it just didn't happen. It was as bad as it looked, and it all fell apart. The problem here is that OP's wife is currently dealing with 2 huge disappointments at the same time. The first one is the event itself, which is horrible enough for almost anyone to bear. But the second is even worse. It's the fact that the situation is probably forcing her to confront and accept something she probably tried not to see for years: how much her family doesn't care. My family split up when I was in my early double digits due to my father having an affair with another woman. My mother and I chose to move back to our home country, and ever since then, I've only got to see my father maybe 2 or 3 times every few years. I speak to him on the phone semi-regularly, but apart from this, we don't really have a strong relationship, and I am quite resentful of this. It definitely feels like his new life, with his partner and her children, take precedence over me. I get on fine with the partner, but obviously I see and speak to her even less than my father. Fast forward. I'm graduating from university this year, and I spoke to my father and had a very polite and seemingly understood conversation that I only wanted him to attend my graduation and not his partner. My reasoning is that I didn't feel that she deserved to be there as much as my mother, who has supported me throughout my studies, whereas my father hasn't really been around. And so his partner has no connection to this day at all, in my mind. My mother, understandably, also would never feel comfortable being in the same room as her, and I wouldn't want to be there for this either. So definitely don't want it on my graduation day. I've received a few very long emails about this from my father since. He came across as fine when I spoke to him on the phone, and now is telling me, since speaking to his partner about it, how hurt and upset he is, and that she is mad and upset at not being invited, which is apparently straining their relationship. My father keeps trying to convince me to change my mind, and is ignoring and invalidating my feelings about the situation in favor of hers. Also, guilt-tripping me a bit in these emails. I kind of feel like it's not my problem that they, or she, have taken so much offense that their relationship, which split my family, might be in peril. He referenced that she views me as a son, which is a mystery to me because we have almost no relationship. To me, she, or they, are coming across as extremely entitled and are showing absolutely zero empathy towards me regarding the affair situation that I've never been able to get over due to my relationship with my father that I never really got. This seems like a situation where most people would at least be a bit understanding. But they, in general, have quite a selfish, everybody should get over it and move on attitude, as if they've done nothing wrong, and there should never be any consequences. I feel like they are acting very entitled, and at this rate, it seems like my father will not even attend, to please her and not his own son. I even originally suggested a compromise of just us at the graduation, and then he and his partner, and not my mother, go out and do something nice afterwards. Still, no dice. Anyway, my partner and many other friends and family members agree they are in the wrong and that his partner should be more understanding and basically bow out. There are many more details I've omitted, so ask any questions if necessary. I'd love some feedback from an internet stranger's point of view. Am I being an a-hole? Of course, I don't think OP is an a-hole. He has a right to invite whoever he wants to. I personally wouldn't invite that woman if I was in OP's situation. You know what, guys? I don't understand why this woman wants to come at all. She knows OP doesn't want her there. Looks like she wants to show off to OP's mom as a winner one more time. In my opinion, OP should say to his dad very clearly that he can come alone or he cannot come at all. I grew up with divorced parents. I have no recollection of them being together, and my earliest memories involve my step-parents. My stepmom and I have never gotten along. The lines in the sand have been clearly drawn as long as I can remember. My bio dad, 51, had told me that when I was 3 years old, I cried and begged him not to bring her sledding with us. My families, who I spent time with 50-50, are very different. Worlds apart different. I was definitely more like my mom's side. I was artistic and enjoyed reading and writing. My dad and his family were very athletic, and he always reminded me that I made him so proud when I did volleyball in 8th grade. When I was younger, I'd have panic attacks when my mom would take me to my dad's. Full-blown anxiety, rapid breathing, crying, begging not to go. Typically, once I was there, things would be relatively okay. I counted down days until I could go home to my mom's. My dad wasn't a bad guy. He was harsh and cold from time to time. He had a habit of telling me I was getting hefty and that if I wasn't careful, I'd end up a failure like my mom. He would make me go for 2-mile runs with him, and if I walked at the end, he would make me run until I was in tears. I have 2 very distinct memories that have heavily influenced my lack of a relationship with them. The first one, I went over on a Sunday, and it was just my dad and my younger half-brother. When I asked where my half-sister was, my dad told me that my stepmom had taken her out for a girls' day about an hour before I arrived. The second memory, I was laying in bed, and my dad was disappointed in me for whatever reason, and he was sitting on the edge of my bed, and I was probably 17 at this point. He started in on me saying I'll turn into my mom, and I told him that he had to stop comparing me to her, and that I am just as much him as I am her. He reminded me that before I was born, he had wanted to move to LA to be a cop out there instead of here, and he asked me if he should have taken that opportunity. I told him very bluntly, time and time again, that if they kept treating me differently than their two children, I would never come back once I turned 18. Fast forward, I held true to my word. I stopped visiting my dad right after my 18th birthday. My mom and stepdad divorced mid-high school. My mom kinda lost her noodle before that, though. I spent most of my high school career taking care of her. I ended up having my daughter when I was 19, hit some rough patches. My ex-stepdad was the only real support I had. I lived with him and my other half-brother for a year. I got married, had another child, and got my own house. All the while, touch and go with my bio-dad's family. I'd try to reach out. We went and got coffee twice in 10 years. Went to dinner as a family once. Last year, I ended up in a huge mess. My husband was highly abusive toward me, and I had no control over any facet of my life anymore under his watch. I had been actively trying to build my relationship with my bio dad and his parents. My dad would respond to messages but wouldn't initiate. My grandparents on his side immediately assumed I was asking for money. I have never and would never allude to needing money when speaking to any of them, let alone outright ask for help. Things took a really drastic turn for the worst last fall, and knowing my ex-stepdad was always the one to bail me out, I reached out to my biological dad late one night after getting beat to a pulp, begging him to let me stay with him for a little while because things were getting really bad. I didn't give details. I figured he would put two and two together considering he has been a detective for so long. His only response was that he needed to talk to his wife. The next morning, after not hearing from him, I basically told him to forget about it. Everything with my marriage came to a head about a month later, and I had to move from my apartment with my two kids. Police were involved, and an investigation into the abuse against me was opened up, and I had to speak to a detective that my bio dad knows. At this point, I had told my dad what I had been through, and he seemed cold, more disappointed than anything. I asked him to go to the detective meeting with me for support, and he told me no. After the meeting, he asked how it went. I assume he was just embarrassed that his friends saw what a failure I was and that I was shaming the family name. That was almost a year ago. Since then, nothing. Silence. He hasn't reached out to ask how I am or to see if I'm safe. I get it, I really do. I'm not angry with him or anything. I have moved on with my life. Meantime, my ex-stepdad's family took me in to allow me time to get on my feet. These people have always been my family. Every holiday ever has been spent with them. They have watched my kids while I worked, helped me with school fees, and have supported me since I was a tiny girl. My aunt on this side has gone to court with me when I was dealing with the fallout. So this year, I asked my ex-stepdad to adopt me. He was always there for me, every step of the way. He helped me with homework as a kid, attended the birth of both of my kids, was at my wedding, calls me every couple days to see how I am, has the kids and I over once a week to spend the night. 3 weeks ago, we went to court and finalized it. I changed my last name to his. I was elated. I am elated. The entire family has always told me that I've been theirs all of my life, and now it's just official. Last night, after not hearing from my stepmom in years, I got a Facebook message telling me that someday I'll know what I gave up and how many sacrifices my bio dad made for me. She talked about how much love and support they offered if I had only embraced it. Shortly after, my half-sister on my bio dad's side blew my phone up, berating me about being disrespectful to the family and how bad I hurt my bio dad, and that she can't believe that I did something as permanent as changing my name. She said someday I'll regret leaving them all behind. I explained to her that, to me, it feels like they had left me behind long ago, and that I never felt like I was a part of that family. I felt like a pawn in a failed marriage. She won't let it go. I explained that if I hadn't changed my name, there would still be silence from them. I also offered to begin mending the relationship as grown women. but that seems to be falling on deaf ears. I apologized for not being there for her more and told her I didn't expect her to understand. I didn't do this to hurt my biological dad's family. I did this to show love for my adoptive family and to finally be a formal part of a family that has supported me unconditionally since I can remember. I don't know if I should reach out to my bio dad and tell him that there is no ill will and that I do still love him despite not being part of their family. Or do I just let it lie? I think OP should go no contact with them. Looks like OP's dad hated OP's mom and saw her in OP. I can see a lot of neglect growing up. Stepdad seems like maybe the only healthy parental figure, so it's natural things went this way. In my opinion, there is no point of trying to rebuild a relationship with these people. Older brother was the favorite of us three. He was the middle. We have another older brother in his 40s. But has since, messed up his life to say the least. I and the hubby came from Hispanic families, so lower middle class childhoods. He got a scholarship and now has a PhD and does research work at a tech company. He said to use the term biggin if that matters to anyone reading. He makes enough money for me to stay at home and work at my dream of being a published author, and our kids have much better childhoods than either of us did. We don't brag, but we also don't make the kids lie about what they do, or what new game systems they got when we go visit and they are asked how their life is and such. Brother got in trouble for dealing, hard stuff, not W, in high school. He does have his GED as of 2 years ago, so at least he's got that going for him, and never really recovered. We, dear husband and I, don't think he has hard gang connections, but also aren't sure, since he does still work his mechanic job at the Firestone. But he doesn't have a ton of money, and with 3 kids by 3 women, he can't afford to take them out, buy them a ton, or go on vacations like my dear husband can for hours. He's been hostile to dear husband ever since they met. He was already 1 degree in with an office job when we started dating, and brother tried to act like the big man on campus and tried to throw his literal weight around, which failed hilariously. But yeah, he's been hostile and tries to casually put him down ever since they met. I know a lot of it is envy, self-consciousness, but it's still nowhere near okay. Mom says his kids ask why ours have so much more, and she says she gets teary-eyed and doesn't know what to say other than luck of the draw. So for the past few weeks, she's been trying to talk me into giving some of our money to brother so he can finally spoil his kids with toys and a vacation, which I am 100% opposed to. I wouldn't normally mind helping a bit, but not anywhere near that much, or to someone who mistreats the man who actually earns this money. I'm about ready to burn some bridges, but can anyone here come up with better ideas? I'm desperate. I think that grandma should explain to the kids that when people work hard, they earn good money and can afford things. She should tell them that when they grow up, they can work hard, earn money, and will be able to buy whatever they want. OP, and especially her husband, are not responsible for paying for OP's brother's kids. It's not their responsibility. OP needs to explain to her mom that her and her husband's first priority is their kids. They worked hard to give their kids a better life, and it's not their responsibility to take care of OP's brother's kids.